Welcome to another episode of the Student Property Monthly podcast. I'm James.
And I'm Charlie, and today we have Jason Sibthorpe,
Jason.
head of Avison Young, UK.
Afternoon, gents.
Afternoon.
Let me see, how have you been?
Very good. Travelling a lot, a little tired, but enjoying life.
Good stuff.
Good.
So, tell us, how did you get to being, partner, director of Avison Young? How did you get here? Tell us from the start, how you started, how you got here now, and just tell us all about it.
Okay, so my career, first of all, it was never ever in my planning. I'm the son of a builder, and when I was 17, having done terribly at school, I worked with my father for about 9 months, maybe a year, and one day he took me to one side and he said, "Jason, I love you very much, but you can't do this. You really cannot do this. You're not cut out for it, so I need to find you something else." And back then I was very fortunate. My parents' neighbour, he worked at Lloyd's Bank. He held a senior role in the bank. And within 2 days he had me in front of their head of HR. And she came back about a week later and offered me 2 roles. I could either become a security guard on the front door of head office, not sure I was cut out to be a security guard, or I could join the property department as a filing clerk. And that's what I did. I just decided property. My dad does building, so there's some alignment there with that, so I'll step in. And so that was my role. For the first 6 months, I did nothing other than be a filing clerk. And I was very fortunate. There was a gentleman called Stephen Locke, and Stephen took me under his wing. He saw more in me than I saw in myself at that particular age. And he wanted to kind of push me into the world of real estate and to push me to try and get qualified effectively. And it was a fairly long journey. So effectively I became the equivalent of a modern day apprentice, I guess. So he made me go back and do A-levels at night school for a year. I got those. I then did a BTEC HNC at South Bank Polytechnic, which then became a university. I don't know if I had an impact on that or otherwise. I then went from there to East London Polytechnic and did a degree day release, which also became a university after I left. And then back then became a surveyor, did the APC, TPC. And so that was probably in total a 7-year journey. So it was a long route into becoming a fully fledged surveyor. And towards the end of that I left the bank, and at the bank I was doing everything from office leasing to advising on stocking up footpaths on development sites of bank land on the south coast, to development appraisals, to elements of facilities management. So it's a very broad understanding of the real estate market. So I was an apprentice, and I went from Lloyd's Bank, I guess in 93, to, as it was then, Healy and Baker, now known as Cushman & Wakefield, and effectively, because this was during another recession, so I had to effectively go back and start again. So I joined as a graduate, although I've been working for the bank for 7 years, and joined as a graduate in the retail team. So I became a retail agent, initially specialising in the world of occupier advice and shopping centre leasing. I went from Healy and Baker to Stratton Parker, from Stratton Parker to Lambert Smith Hampton, and then from Lambert Smith Hampton to GVA, all the time doing retail agency, and then as my career progressed into a bit of retail development as well. And then whilst at GVA, I started to take on more leadership responsibilities within the retail team, and then that then became the retail hotels and leisure team. So I got to lead that particular team. During 2008, another significant recession, I took on responsibility for the whole of it, and took a difficult situation at the time and turned it around. And I guess that got me noticed in different directions. So a couple of years later, I got invited to join the board of GVA, and then having sat on there for a little while, we were looking at selling the business to Bilfinger, a German DAX-listed PLC, and they asked us for our succession plan. If I'm very candid, I don't think we had a detailed succession plan. And I was very fortunate then to be identified as one of 3 people to potentially replace the CEO of the business as part of that succession planning. And I became kind of obsessed around the possibility of that role, if I'm honest, for a period of time. Got very excited by it, but then recognised the importance of carrying on and building what I was doing around the whole retail, hotels, leisure agenda as well. But what did happen during that period, I guess, as part of training, development, readiness, I was asked to take on a role where I became the regional senior director for the London office. So taking kind of broad responsibility across all of the business units, all of the sectors, and to try and create a better internal collaboration culture, which is a broader dynamic as how we work across the business. Thoroughly enjoyed that, and time progressed, and to cut a very long story short, I got down to 1 of 2 people to become the next CEO, and I didn't get it. And I got told by an individual who will remain nameless, who gave me 10 minutes notice before the rest of the business found out that I wasn't going to get the role. So at that time I'd been at GVA for 14 years, and I decided now was the time for a new challenge, and the opportunity to join Avison Young came along. And Avison Young being effectively a partnership business, we're a Canadian business, we're Avison Young Candidate Incorporated, but ostensibly we are a partnership. We the principals hold 80% of the equity. And they gave me the opportunity to come in and with fellow principals help drive and lead the UK business. In fact, we're sitting in what is, if you like, the London home of Avison Young in Ganton Street. This is kind of where we were born in the early days of the UK growth for Avison Young. I'm very privileged to quickly had the opportunity to buy a couple of very strong businesses. We had a business called NRS, which was logistics, that had already come into Avison Young. We bought Wilkinson Williams, which was and is the #1 out of town retail business for the UK. We've got a strong business in Manchester called WHR. So started to build pretty quickly with some really top talent. And then, in a very surreal move, we were privileged to have the opportunity to then do the deal with the GVA. And then overnight, we became the 5th largest real estate advisor in the UK by commercial revenue. So that, I guess, is a very quick kind of run through of me being 18 years old to 53 years old. So how do you get here? I guess what you get here partly by hard work, by opportunity, by being prepared to step outside your comfort zone, and also a huge dose of luck. And then going back to those early days, and this has been repeated throughout, support from other people within the industry who take you under their wing, who generally act as your mentors, and do all they possibly can to help drive and support your career. So that's something, I guess, that's really kind of laid with me in terms of that responsibility and importance. And no matter what you do in terms of your career and how that progresses, remember how you got there, and then make sure that you're also kind of rinsing and repeating that by giving back to others too, so their own careers can progress in the same way.
So on the point of that there, so Oxford Brookes have just released their mentoring scheme for the second years this year. Have you got any advice for the mentors themselves and the mentees as well?
Yeah, so the reality is, and I'd love to know who's mentoring you, and I'd love to know who thinks who's mentoring. We have a mentoring scheme at Avison Young, and in theory, I'm mentoring, I think, 5 individuals. Absolute rubbish. They're all mentoring me because I'm taking from them and learning far more from them. And that, this isn't being condescending at all. It's not. It's actually quite serious because I'm mentoring 20-somethings, 30-somethings who have a very different perspective, different expectations around what happens next. Not just within their own lives, but within our industry. And we come on and talk about the impact of technology and sustainability, diversity, etc. So mentoring is such an important part, but I personally now genuinely get more value from mentoring or being a mentee to the younger generation than I perhaps would. I'm not dismissing my generation or older at all, but it's a fundamental part of, I guess, all of our continuous improvement, training, development, and understanding.
Yeah, definitely. And you talked about data and Avison Young. It's very interesting. So, how do you see the next 5-10 years at Avison Young, and data moving forward and property technology? What kind of change do you think you'll see in the next couple of
We've
years?
already seen incredible change, and data is called many things. It's called the oil. It's called the gold. The data is driving everything, and it's, I guess, the challenge for all of us. Partly, of course, is what data are you collecting, how you're capturing that data, where you're taking that data from, your data sources, but ultimately, it's then what do you do with the data, how do you interpret that data, what's your technology, what's your software that you can then create platforms and bespoke solutions on behalf of our clients to provide really compelling insights and strategic solutions which then you deliver against their own operational strategies. So we, as I was going to say surveyors, but we're not even in a world where we're all surveyors anymore within the real estate industry. That has changed so much in terms of what you might be within the industry. You may be a chartered surveyor, you may be from a technology background, you may be a planner, you may be economist, you may have more of a financial background. What's fundamental around all of this seismic change that's happening is that we all embrace that change. And recognise the importance of power of data, because for an industry that historically has been pretty much broadly a relationship-based industry, and it's not to in any way ignore the importance of relationships, because they are still absolutely key as well. But a relationship in isolation will only take you so far. A relationship where you are a genuine partner, and then you bring alongside that the data and the tech and the talent to provide those that level of insight and innovation to provide the really compelling deep solutions. That's the future of our industry.
So would you say, assuming it's on the board of sort of a bit of expansion, incorporating all these different elements with all this sort of new technology that's coming in, saying it has scope for sort of a lot of the property companies across the UK to sort of expand their workforce all in-house rather than outsourcing?
Yeah, I mean, we're a growth business, and we've grown from Canadian-only business in 2008, $40 million revenue, and north of $1 billion for last year, and very ambitious plans to continue that growth.
Yeah.
So yes, absolutely, tech brings different opportunities for us. Being honest, it also then can create risk, because if you don't embrace that change and you just, I guess, follow a more traditional path, then at a point in time you'll probably become exposed, because the quality of advice and the inability to kind of embrace and use technology and understand the impacts of sustainability, etc., as well, in terms of what we're feeding back to our clients. If you can't do that, then that will be a challenge down the line. But yeah, there's always headwinds, there's always something in front of us that's created a challenge, but there's always opportunity as well. And there's absolutely no doubt that the understanding and the utilisation of how we're now capturing and interpreting and feeding back data to our clients creates a massive opportunity for how we can grow our business.
Would you say the change was mainly made in COVID with Avison Young, or was it before COVID? Or because obviously you've been here since 2016, so what have you seen kind of change? Was it the current COVID pandemic that's made the way tech has come forward so much more?
So, the tech was here, coming. I don't think anyone necessarily has the perfect system just yet in our industry. We're also searching for that system. We think we're getting close.
Exciting times ahead.
But we have a technology platform called Avon that we're very excited about what it is doing and the potential for it. Did COVID? I think COVID probably did accelerate it. I think for me, COVID has had many impacts on the industry and bluntly on society as well, because it did give us all the time to really reflect on what we're doing, why we're doing it, do I want to be here, etc., etc. But also then from a real commercial perspective, that time to go, okay, where are we? What are we doing? What are our clients going to expect? How do we prepare for the future, and where do we need to invest? So I think COVID, just because of the time it gave back for us to think strategically about what comes next, by default it then helped with the acceleration of the investment and the progression of our technology and how we find solutions that will work well for our clients.
Very interesting.
Yeah, so relating back, what do you think you find your day-to-day role is as a sort of president of the sort of UK aspect of Avison Young?
It's very mixed. I spend a lot of my time listening to lots of colleagues within the business. We're a pretty large business. We're 5,000 people from a global perspective, with 1,500 colleagues in the UK. So there's always somebody that wants to have a conversation around the strategy, the direction, the vision, etc. So listening and sharing is a big part of that. For me, I think the core of my role is continuing the growth of Avison Young, and ensuring that growth is aligned with our global strategy and aligned with our global colleagues as well. So I spend a huge amount of time. I often refer to myself as a glorified recruitment consultant. Someone said, "What makes you glorified?" But basically, out there, strategy is very simple. Strategy is really the art of marrying your internal capabilities with the external possibilities. And as a business, there are still lots of external possibilities where we currently have an opportunity to build further into that space. So we have some white space, we have some capability gaps, we have an opportunity to continue to grow our business and some sector enhancement, step into certain areas of real estate advisory that we don't necessarily play in significantly or at all right now. So at a high level, I think that one of my absolute core responsibilities is to help stimulate and accelerate the growth of that business. So I always say my job is very simple in many ways. You look for the very top talent in those strategic priority growth areas, and you identify that either by individuals, teams, or occasionally some M&A activity. And effectively, you bring the talent in, and then they are the architects to continue the growth. And being that partnership structure, my job is to, once I have the privilege of bringing that top talent in, it's then for them to tell me what they then need back from me to continue to support that growth. And then, of course, making sure that the existing business has the right infrastructure, the right platform, the right tech, working across all of our regions, all of our business units, all of our sectors, to be certain that we're all aligned, that we're all ambitious and motivated to embrace the change, but also to ensure we're always exploring ways to improve. It doesn't matter how good you get in anything you do, it's never finished. The day you think it's finished, that's probably the day you should pack up and go sailing. That's what I'll be doing. So to always recognise that there's always the need to continuously improve, continuously challenge. So I guess being part of pushing that back into the business and hopefully being part of the solution around how we strategically grow the whole of the business.
Talking about growth and picking out talent, what would you kind of recommend for people that want to get into the industry, obviously, and also like applying to Avison Young as kind of on grad roles, and obviously if they even got jobs, because lots of people will be watching hopefully this podcast. So what do you recommend?
So that's probably, I get that question more than
any question. Yeah.
What's the secret sauce? What's the differentiator? And I'll be honest. It talks about how I got into the industry. And let's be honest, I got in the industry back in the day by a parent's neighbour who said, "I'll get Jason a job, and I'll speak to the head of HR. I had an opportunity to get a job." We would never allow that now, rightly so. Yeah. Because that's not a fair way for someone. If there's a job available, then there should be a process, and then others should have the opportunity to challenge for that role as well. So undoubtedly, it's more challenging than ever. And when we look at the amount of applicants that we get, be it for graduates, be it for apprentices, etc., it's significant. The amount of people that apply, it's far greater than the amount of people that we take on. I appreciate that's kind of spread across the whole of the industry, but still, it's a very big number. So for me, it's the importance. How do you stand out? Obviously, your academic qualifications have to be a tick in the box. There's a given. I've done that. I've passed the test. I can demonstrate that I'm bright enough, clever enough to come in and play a positive part. But for me, it is still about personality, and personalities are shaped in very many different ways and can be very many different things. Personality doesn't necessarily mean you're someone that shouts from the rooftops all the time. You know, personality can be someone that's also very, very quiet. But finding the time to really understand the individual is important, but again can be difficult when you're trying to filter across so many applicants. So on your CV, I mean, things that you would always, I think, look out for is you know, life experience, the fact that maybe if you have taken some work experience elsewhere, if you've taken the time out to do a job, if you've taken the time to put yourself out and be responsible for a student paper, and come and speak to people like me who do podcasts. But it's a real challenge for us as an industry to think about how we do bring people into our business and bring people into our business from all backgrounds. You're sitting in front of me today as degree students coming directly from a real estate-based degree, which is a fantastic way to come into the industry. It's the way that the core of everyone's come into the industry forever. But we also need to now say, okay, what else can we do? How else can we attract different talent into the industry? How can we ensure that we are going out and finding talent from different backgrounds, different skill sets, and finding a way to kind of raise the profile of our industry? Because I don't think, you know, if you go to the average school, that many people would necessarily have the real estate industry in their top 1, 2, or 3. I've got off a piece of it here in answering your question, but it's all kind of relevant because we have to create more interest in the industry, so we get more people like yourselves that want to consider it. And I guess the exciting thing is, going back to the earlier question about, you know, the impact of technology has. So you look at technology, look at our response to the climate crisis, and you know, the real estate industry is responsible for 40% of carbon emissions. Well, that means we can be an incredible force for good if we can help be part of the solution. But this all means that we need different people with different skills and different talents than the traditional real estate advisor. And one of the individuals that I'm mentoring right now sits on the operations side of our business, sits on the technology side of the business, and was having the conversation the other day that, you know, historically the reality is leadership within real estate advisory businesses always comes from the surveying, always comes from the fee earning side of the business. Well, that's kind of crazy. There's no reason why. It's not crazy because I've got that role, but there's actually no reason why, as we move forward, that the future leaders absolutely could and should be coming from different areas, from different backgrounds, from different parts of the business, because we will see areas such as sustainability, such as technology, that will be far more pivotal to driving the success of businesses as well. I'm trying to answer your question a bit more. the one piece of advice that I always give everybody and anybody, and it's a piece of advice that someone gave me, and I wasn't quite sure what they meant at the time, but it's whenever you get asked to do anything within reason, whenever you get asked to do anything that's out of your comfort zone, embrace it and do it. I remember the first time I was asked to stand up and do a presentation in the office, and I was just horrified by the thought of having to stand in front of my colleagues and talk about something that I probably didn't even really know that well, and spent so long preparing for it, felt horrendous on the day, you know, feeling sick, did it, got it over and done with, and then, you know, people saying, "Oh, well done, you did a good job there. You seem quite calm and, you know, relaxed and, you know, knowledgeable." It's like, I didn't feel any of those things at all. But ultimately, it could be anything. But always embrace change and embrace an opportunity that takes you out of your comfort zone. Yeah. You never ever think you've reached the destination. Always challenge yourself to continually improve and learn, because, you know, I'm a long way off from knowing what I need to know in this industry.
Well, we must be even further away off then, but we'll get there hopefully one day.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, definitely. Got any more questions? Or
I think that's just about us.
Well, Jason, it's been a pleasure to interview you for the podcast, and thank you so much for coming on, and it's so interesting. Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.